Hey, welcome. Welcome to Occam's Razor. This is the nap. And I just noticed that for some reason, as I was playing that intro, it went and selected an intro from a couple of days ago. I am using OBS, and it does have seem to have some quirks. I always check this before, and then it just grabs the wrong file. Anyway, my fault, not yours. Welcome back to the nap, where we cover the question period. We call it the nap because it is the no answer period. So prior to getting into Parliament here, as we can see them having a session of government orders, where the government gets asked questions and they refuse to answer them, or they blame everyone else but themselves for their inaction. So before we get to that, let's remind everybody on the half-wittery of people running our government and the consequences as a result of what is happening in society. Now, one of the most aggravating things for anyone living in Canada, of course, is the cost of living. The cost of living at every level. And people are getting desperate. People are getting desperate, and they're resulting to this.
Let's cut to the chase. Canada is a failing state by almost any metric. Every year it gets worse, harder, and more dystopian. Canada, in my mind, is a laboratory for global social experiments, as in the nefarious and evil far right versus the humane and loving alphabet coalition. Well, that, in my mind, is a manufactured culture war distraction from the real issues. And what are those issues? Well, the insane housing prices in Canada, as well as most Western nations, the plummeting of birth rates, more mental illness everywhere, more inequality, and most people getting poorer. And because this video is focusing on Canada, in that country, the only solution to any problem the country might have is more and more and more immigration, despite how it negatively contributes to the country's housing crisis. And this crisis, the Canadian housing crisis, has now birthed an interesting new trend called sex for rent. And it's exactly as it sounds. Landlords in Canada, and I won't describe them as it might violate the feelings of some, well, they're offering free and or cheap rent to women who will spread their legs on demand. There's no sugarcoating it here. This is raw and so very Canadian in 2025, and it's happening right now in cities like Toronto and Vancouver. I should say, however, no matter how bad things get, Canadian voters keep on asking for more.
Please, 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 I'm calling on you to come to the farm today.
Breaking news. It appears it is the final hours for the Battle of the Birds. Many of you know by now at our special website called SaveTheOstriches.com that Edgewood, British Columbia farmers have been fighting tooth and nail to protect their healthy flock of nearly 400 ostriches from the Canadian Food Inspection Agency's senseless and inhumane cull order, even though their birds are not poultry, even though the birds are not sick, and even though their birds are not being used for human consumption, but instead for groundbreaking research with their antibody-rich eggs to fight things like COVID And now, since they're recovered, it could be the avian flu. But that conflicts with Big Pharma. And unfortunately, I have received a very credible, very concerning tip. And to protect the sources, I'm not going to give you all of the information. But in short, the Canadian Food Inspection Agency, according to this intel, is planning to have whoever they've hired to ascend on the farm this Saturday and execute the call by Monday. Right now, I'm going to throw to Katie Pisitny, the adult daughter of one of the farm's co-owners, as well as the spokesperson for the farm.
They have rewritten immunity because Big Pharma is involved. And I just noticed I didn't have my mic on. Once again, big mic issue. First 10 minutes. I hope people are still watching. Bloody hell. So, as you can see, I suggest everybody go and watch this YouTube video or go on Rumble and watch Rebel News. What they are doing to this herd is absolutely evil. They have, as you can see, it's Big Pharma, right? The CFIA has been making its own rules. The Canadian Food Inspection Agency has created its own rules. As a quick review, as I was doing when I had the mic off, if you're still watching, they gave 2 carcasses anal swabs using a questionable polychain reaction uh, test. The same PCR test that was used during the COVIDity stupidity that destroyed people's lives by deciding that they were going to be an anti-vaxxer and a second-class citizen. The same test, right? They tested 2 dead birds. The flu came by, took out a chunk of the herd, and the rest have survived. That's called herd immunity. Just like every other human, you get sick with something, you develop immunity, and then you don't get sick as much anymore because you have antigens, right? But for some reason, the World Health Organization has rewritten the description for what natural immunity is, and they no longer recognize herd immunity, which is why they're coming in to kill these birds, which is why they refuse to test these birds, which is why if they test a single bird, I goes wrong yesterday, it's not a $10,000 fine, it's a $20,000 fine, and then they will arrest them and throw them in jail for 6 months. So they refuse to test the birds that are actually alive to see if they're still a threat, because they're going on the assumption of 2 dead carcasses from a questionable test. And every approach that they have done to the courts have refused to look at any new evidence and have only deferred to the CFIA, right? So you have elected judges by the Liberals who are deferring to departments run by the Liberals who are in cahoots with globalist groups to come in and just arbitrarily destroy a people's livelihood because they can, because they have the power of the state behind them. Now, they were flying choppers around their property shining a sunlight on them. That's what we used to call it when we installed it on the search and rescue helicopter. This massive spotlight, 10,000 candela power. What are they doing? What is the government doing? They're doing this on purpose, right? You have no idea the level of abuse the Liberals continue to do to Canadians every single day in order to hang on to power. Let's move on to the next video. Wow, a moose video. And this one should be interesting. Again, uh, go visit David on his site, Moose on a Loose, wonderful little videos that he does.
Like, I'm getting ready to rip her a new one, and she did. Next up, we got a clip here of a Canadian business owner. Just listen to this. This is what it's like doing business in Canada.
We make this stuff here. We source stuff from Canadian farmers, and we hire Canadians. We want to have a business here. But the truth is, our Liberal government and Doug Ford have made it hard for businesses to stay here. They charge tax when we buy the stuff for the products. They charge tax when we sell the products. They charge tax when we pay our employees. They charge tax on the business, on the profits the business make, and it goes on and on and on. So I don't blame Crown Royal for leaving. I've thought of leaving. The reality is we want to make these products in Canada. These are premium beef tallow skincare products, but the Liberal government has made it hard for businesses to succeed.
Nah, they're shutting down a plant that was bottling for America, so they're setting that up in America so they don't have to pay tariffs, but yet the majority of their operations is in Canada, and nobody says a damn thing. Carney, as chair, voted to move the headquarters of Brookfield to America. Jumping over to the House of Commons, we have one of the funniest moments I've seen in a long time. Well, maybe that's because the House of Commons hasn't been in session for most of this year. You got to listen to this. So this is one of these canned questions where they have some backbenchers stand up and say, please, Liberal Minister, tell me about this, that, and the other. And so she brings up the CRA, and then the Conservatives give her a standing ovation.
Have contacted me and my team to express their frustrations with the delays they experience when they try to contact the CRA. We know that the dedicated
Sorry about that, folks. The VPN kicked back on, started interrupting the broadcast. Got a little distracted. Get better at this every day. Now, let's move on here to Mario. Mario, if you've been following him on X, has been posting a lot of videos. He gets quite the following, quite the group of people who are paying attention to him, and he is making a difference. How do we know? Well, let us watch.
The liberals out there realize I'm a problem. I'm a pretty big problem. And so the best thing they can do is try to discredit me. And here's a perfect example.
I'm going to expose Canadian Tire.
No, you are not, bud. You're going to show an unverified DM with unsubstantiated claims.
A whistleblower reached out to me.
You see?
He said that they turfed over 800 jobs. Quietly. Nothing in the news.
While Canadian Tire has confirmed layoffs, they have not publicly disclosed specific figures.
So this video uses AI for their voice. They call themselves onlyfacts.ca. And literally the whole page is just dedicated to squashing disinformation. The logic that he used was he's wrong because there's no other outside verified source. I'm not going to give you the source. I'm just going to tell you he's wrong.
So this is the same ideology that was used during the COVIDity stupidity, right? You would say things that are obviously true, obviously common sense, and they would come back and say, well, prove it. You have no data to prove that. You have no data to prove that. And we'd be like, well, neither do you. But like the authoritarians that they are, they think that they have the moral right to tell you what to do while not taking into consideration or even taking responsibility all the harm and the injuries and the deaths they cause.
And this is the page. It only seemingly exists on TikTok, but their most viewed videos are the ones that feature this guy right here. And as you can see from all the screenshots, everything, and I mean everything, is targeting conservative news. Anything that is pro-conservative. You have Danielle Smith, Jasmine Lane, and then you have me scattered throughout. Like I said, the most watched video has to do with me. But you see, people have followed me long enough. And they're literally posting things like Mario's nothing but the truth. He's not lying. And that TikTok platform is paid by the government. And I'm starting to think that that's the case. Mario's reliable, trustworthy. Move on or tell your liberal boss he's wasting money. The whole page is literally like this. But guess what? I'm glad you all know the truth. And even within the comments, one of the employees that got dismissed on the live stream through Canadian Tire literally sent that message. And after I published that video, I heard from the husband of a worker that was laid off via live stream, and they verified the claims that I made about the live stream, about how they laid people off, multiple sources. And what this account doesn't realize, this is literally what the news is all about. You have a source, you have information, you publish that information. And whether it's Canadian.
Yeah, exactly. Excuse me. Right. So this is what the liberals do. And they did this during the COVIDity stupidity, right? They, it's not enough that they give close to 30 grand a year per journalist and pay subsidies in order to control the mainstream media under their approved mainstream media outlets. The only approved media is allowed to report in the approved areas of Canada by the liberals. And even with that massive control of media, they're losing viewership, right? People just don't watch. They're going over to these platforms and they've realized that. And just like they did during the COVIDity stupidity, they went to Twitter and they said, hey, you have to shut down these people. You have to close down these accounts. You have to freeze them, ban them, whatever. You can't let them talk about this stuff. And they did that. A lot of us got canceled. A lot of us got taken off, or we had little timeouts until we had to, if we said something wrong, right? That was the truth. Off we went, censored. Well, now they've lost that. Now they have lost that control, right? So that's why their only last venture is to bring in their own new version of the Harms Reduction Act in order to impose mass censorship, to use the organ of the state to arrest people, just like they're doing in the UK. In fact, the UK has more people, over 12,000 people sitting in jail for having posted hurty words that embarrass the government. And that's the whole thing. The government refuses to acknowledge these truths. They don't like to be embarrassed at all. In fact, they have put in legislation and rules that if you embarrass the government, you're going to get punished one way or the other. Now, still catch up here on the vaccine ideology. More information. So I spoke about this earlier in the week about DNA contamination, and we have more of this by another Canadian treasure that we have here in Canada. Tamara Ugolini works over at Rebel News. She is an awesome reporter. She started reporting with them, what, 5, 6 years ago or so? No, it was during the COVID stupidity. It was Ezra Levant was in just up the road there in Coburg, and he was doing a piece there on how people were being banned from being able to go to the beach. And her father had been arrested because he was out in the water. He wasn't actually on the beach, he was in the water, and the cops took issue with that. Out in the water, being safe. Yeah. So Ezra saw that she was really well spoken and said, hey, you should come and join our team. And she has been doing an awesome job. And she has been carrying the vaccine portfolio, or big pharma portfolio, we should see. So they have a really good website. You want to find out anything regarding publications, the latest news related to vaccine stuff for Canada, they are the spot to go.
Now that Canadian Parliament is back in action, official government documents called Order Paper Questions, or OPQs, are rolling in. And today I have one that comes from a Conservative MP who is trying to, or attempting to, uncover the web of secrecy surrounding Canada's COVID-19 vaccine contracts. Those deals, well, they're worth billions in taxpayer dollars, and they're shrouded in non-disclosure agreements that bound officials to silence, potentially forever. And as we'll see, the government's response raises more questions than it answers, making it nearly impossible to pinpoint who knew what and when due to layers of classified information. So let's dig in. All right, let's start with the question itself, which is posed by Conservative MP Dean Allison, who referenced an access to information document that revealed top officials, including Chief Public Health Officer at the time, Theresa Tam, and several pandemic managers from departments like Health Canada, the Public Health Agency of Canada, Industry, Foreign Affairs, and even National Defense had to sign what he called a secret oath. The access to information document reveals that this oath promised they'd never divulge information that may result in embarrassment to the government.
So you want to watch the rest of this video, I recommend you go to Rebel News and watch it there. And I want to talk about this little part here. May result in embarrassment, criticism, or claims against Canada, may jeopardize Canada's supplier relationship with procurements, right? So you cannot embarrass the government. And that is no more so than the Canadian Armed Forces. They have taken that to the 1th degree. It used to be some form of political neutrality in the military, right? Because nobody cared about your politics in the military because you're working for the country. Because politics was not inculcated into policy, but it is now. It is rife throughout the Canadian Armed Forces. They have inculcated DEI, making white Christians or heterosexuals second-class citizens in our own military. It's in there. You just have to read it. But as a result of the COVIDity stupidity, you do have a lot of members in the Canadian Armed Forces who have been vaccine injured, and their injuries have not been recognized. I know some of them. Their injuries have not been recognized, so they are not getting recompense, and they are permanently injured. And because they're waiting to serve out the rest of their contract before they can get released, they can't talk about it. They can't say anything about it. They've been injured. They have no help. They have no place to go. Why? Because it may cause embarrassment. This is your liberal government. Let's move on to the next story. So if we don't get to anything else today before Parliament starts, and we're still, seats are still empty. Good. Yeah, question period is not supposed to start for another 6 minutes. Let's get back to this. This is very important. Independent media in Canada has been under attack by the Liberal government of Canada. In fact, they have promoted surreptitiously violence against independent media by allowing far left groups to run rampant throughout Canada without any accountability, without the law being applied to them. And in many instances, when our independent media are trying to cover these far left lunatics, they are getting attacked and the police are not doing anything to protect them. And why is that? Because a fish rots from the head down. This government is rotten to the core. A fish rots from the head down, especially when it comes to ethics and morals. Any real government would recognize that media should be completely independent and not under government control, but not for these communist liberals. And that is why they're far left lunatics that they have created over the past 10 years to run rampant around on the streets, the ones who they've changed the education system to, for them to walk out with mental issues because they're being told there's something they're not, and to believe that people can say that there's something they're not. So you have a bunch of broken brains out there running around who's who are emotional children in every other way, and the only thing they know what to do is to either yell, scream, have a fit, or cause violence with anyone they disagree. And what do they do? What did they do?
Wait a second, look at that. Look at that. That's not okay. So I came in here with Rob Krychek behind me here of Rebel News.
He's on the phone with the police.
He's on the phone with the police right now. So we didn't get as far even as the entranceway before we were confronted by masked thugs. And they physically assaulted Rob to start off the day. That calmed down. That went on for a bit. Then I just came in to try to film a bit. They followed me around and then
took the phone.
One of these, yeah, one of these thugs took my phone.
In the middle of an interaction, they were surrounding you with a flag wall. One of them rushed for your phone, extended out, got it. Then everybody was on top of everybody. Someone was on top of him on the ground. I had to pull the person off, and some other person from the crowd did it as well.
Yeah, I was trying to pay attention to my phone and look for my phone, and then that's when, I don't know, I guess that's when I got hit, but I got hit pretty hard.
They ran, man.
Yeah, I think
Brass knuckles,
they fled the scene. I don't know, man.
They totally left.
It clocked me good.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Is that it?
Yeah, that's fine.
This is the new normal, Canada. This is the new normal created by the Liberal government. The new normal is mass amounts of migrants coming in and somehow disturbing the equilibrium we had in our society of law and order to the point where it exists no longer. Even had an MP, a female MP, yesterday, during question period, state that she doesn't feel safe walking the streets of Ottawa, our country's capital, just down the street from Parliament, because Canada has turned into an utter shithole. You are not safe in Canada, in any of the large cities. where all the goons and goblins run around, as David says on his channel. All the addicts being fed harm reduction. Every social system designed only to further crumble society. Yes, nothing is really working under liberals. And we're still talking about Bill C3. Let's move on to this next piece. Leslyn Lewis here, breaking news yesterday. This is a question that happened during QP. BC Ferries warned minister's office 6 weeks before Chinese ferries deal. That she claimed she was blindsided. We know that's a lie. Of course we do. Let's bring this up here and have a listen to Leslyn.
Was misled. New emails show that BC Ferries warned the former Minister of Transport's officials 6 weeks before announcing that the ferries would be built in China. Yet, the minister stood in this House of Commons and claimed that she was blindsided. At the same time, her staff was working with the Prime Minister's office on how to spin this billion-dollar deal. Canadians just want to know the truth. Why did the Liberals ship Canadian tax dollars and jobs straight to China?
The Honourable Minister for Housing and Infrastructure.
Again, I don't know why this is so confusing for the members opposite. This is a BC Ferries procurement. BC Ferries makes decisions about where they buy their ships, and that decision rests with those at BC Ferries. Mr. Speaker, we can do our part to invest in Canadian jobs, Canadian workers. We are focused on a Buy Canada strategy, and we will deliver for Canadian workers.
Typical lying response. Let's remind everyone of what's actually going on with the ferries. See if we can get that up. Oh, it's not coming up. Come on. There we go. Maybe next time. Let's move on to the next story. Quick check. Still talking. Oh, something from Mario. Because they're trying to cancel Mario using your government funded, probably, right? The channel, this TikTok channel. Yeah, it's got to be government funded. But just because they're going after Mario, let's get more Mario. So here's Mario talking about Sean Fraser, who has probably lost his marbles. He wants to get rid of the notwithstanding clause. Well, I'm old enough to remember when the Constitution was brought home, apparently, in 1982, with the introduction of the notwithstanding clause. This was all done under the progressive conservatives, under Brian Mulroney. Well, I remember the progressive conservatives for stealing the superannuation or pension surplus that both the RCMP and the Canadian Armed Forces had in their instead of giving the money back to the members, the government decided to change the law and then take the surplus for themselves to pay down the debt. So we can thank the progressive conservatives for that. But meanwhile, here's Sean Fraser talking about, here's Mario telling him that Sean Fraser's lost his marbles. Because we had this instituted, the notwithstanding clause. Now, it's only been used 16 times, according here to Mario, in the last 40 years. He is proposing unelected judges overrule elected lawmakers. That's just like Brazil, right? In Brazil, that's turned into a dictatorship under the judiciary. That's not how a democracy is supposed to work. The fact that Canada appoints its judges in the first place is very problematic because we have a lot of liberal appointed judges who act in a very liberal way and do not enforce the law. They do not apply the law. They apply the law according to their ideology, and that's horrible. And we can see with our own bloody eyes, by the way, all you provincial boards, all you legal colleges across Canada that license lawyers in those provinces, we can see what you're doing. You're not fooling anyone. You can hide behind the law, but in the end, we know how slimy you are behind that suit and that tie. So he's proposing unelected judges overrule elected lawmakers. Provinces lose flexibility. And rights applying with zero balance no matter the context. Rights applied with zero balance no matter the context. And just like they did during the COVID stupidity, running roughshod over Canadians, didn't care, right? Oh, we'll just apply the Emergencies Act. just so we can have complete control. And then get rid of it a couple of days later, but don't apply it throughout the country. We know exactly what they did. There was no emergency. They created their own emergency so they could violate people's rights. And then, of course, that was deemed illegal. And now this week or next week, so these cases are all coming to fruition, right? And all these politicians that were involved in violating people's rights, it's all documented. And they're trying to hide this. They've been shredding paperwork for sure, but it's all coming to a head. And like we said back then, in the end, nobody gets out alive. You're going to leave this planet one way or the other. You can hasten it, or you can just enjoy each day, one day at a time, and try to live your best possible life. And think of others before you think of yourself, as opposed to thinking like a liberal where they just think about themselves. So what Sean Fraser really is just trying to change the law, like the liberals do, so they can just maintain control. It's absolutely disgusting. And what's happening here? We still have
the Parliamentary Secretary to the Government House Leader.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question to the member is in regards to...
Well, guess we're going to wait a little longer. Question period. Well, let's do another Mario clip. Why not?
Without any sort of treatment last year. And in Quebec, that number is
At
close.
the beginning.
This is incredibly sad and breaking news. 300,000 people in Ontario left the emergency rooms without any sort of treatment last year. And in Quebec, that number is closer to 500,000 people. And this is according to a new study done by the Montreal Economic Institute. And they said that these people weren't leaving because they feel better, it's because the system is failing them. Thousands of Quebecers are being denied access to care each year. The crazy part is, in Quebec alone, there was 3.7 million people that visited the emergency room. That means nearly 12% of all people who visit didn't get the treatment they needed. They left before seeing a doctor. Do you want to know what that number is across Canada? 1.26 million patients each year leave the emergency room without seeing anyone. And PEI had the highest proportion of people at nearly 15%. It's disgusting, it's insane, and I've talked about this before, and I'll say it again. Even though healthcare is a provincial issue, it doesn't matter when you have a tsunami of people coming into the country. Instead of sending 20 some odd billion dollars overseas to Ukraine, or to other countries that receive tens of billions of dollars, or maybe the near $80 billion of corporate welfare that's been given out in the last few years by the Liberal Party, we wouldn't be having this issue. That money could have gone to all of our provinces, hospitals could have been built, and that would be the ultimate nation-building project. Our healthcare is getting worse. How is it possible that our taxes go up, but the services that we get in return, like the healthcare which we pay for, because it's not free, keeps getting worse and worse? My friends, this is absolute insanity. Canada first, always.
It's obvious what's going on in Canada, folks. It's obvious. We have a kleptocracy in charge. They are doing everything they can to steal everything that isn't bolted down. And they are trying to hide their crimes by constantly having a nonstop barrage of ethics violations, of allowing crime to run rampant, of constant stories where the liberals do something wrong. And then, of course, you can't keep track of the constant, every single day, there's another thing that the liberals have done where money's gone missing, uh, their friends are getting contracts, right? Or and then they won't provide the documents when they've been ordered to, or they shut down committees, or their people don't show up to have answers. And now, like we've seen this week, all their liberal insiders and MPs, oh well, they're all getting nice cushy jobs. Some of them apparently right after their pension kicks um, in October, and then off they go in November. They get their glorious little overseas positions. These people are so corrupt. It's incredible. And are we still doing?
Si un député participant en personne désire que la motion soit adoptée ou adoptée avec dissidence, ou si un député de parti reconnu participe...
God, I feel like I've been given a wrong time for the question period. Typically, it's supposed to be at this time on Fridays. Of according to the schedule. Right, well, let's move on to the next story. It's not like we have any absence of events that put liberals in a bad light. All the more reason for them to expedite their harm reduction digital legislation to ensure that all of us get censored and thrown in jail. But before then, let's keep watching some of this. So Andy Lee, if you were on X and you're Canadian and you don't know about Andy, then you have been on X very long. Andy says here, I just thought you should know as you try to find ways to save money and pay your bills that we sent $8.2 million to Vietnam to create gender just rice. Indeed, gender just rice. Oxfam got the money, eh? And so this is just one example. Sorry, here you go. You can go to the government website. You can look all these up. It's if we had an absence of tiny little events like this every single day that involve liberals in their crime, corruption, and failures, we would just have to go to the government website and start bringing up every single place on the planet that they have sent millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions, over $1 billion on the credit card, by the way, because we don't have the money. Over to these places. They just like this here, $8.2 million for gender just low carbon rice value chains in Vietnam. 4 million visits at a food bank in Canada. But glory for us, we will have gender just rice in Vietnam. In the Nam. All right, let's move on to the next story. Michael Cooper, MP from Alberta. Investigation launched. Conservatives have launched a probe into Carney's massive conflicts of interest. Oh, massive conflicts of interest? Could it have anything to do with this, perhaps? David's nice massive chart that he's continues to collate and puts together over at Moose on the Loose, perhaps, Mr. Cooper? I'm sure that will help, but I'm sure they can find enough of their own information. So, the Ethics Committee will review ethics laws to close loopholes. Carney has taken advantage of including fake screens, blind trusts, and his use of tax havens. Right, this whole blind trust issue. And like we saw yesterday, you're listening to his clerk that he's hired to screen him. So he's paying the guy, and then the guy's supposed to take care of him. Well, he's taking care of him all right. And he said, well, you have to understand the screen. He is not getting the money today. It was like, yeah, but he owns the stocks. He's going to get the money tomorrow. Well, that's just perception. Yeah, it's perception because we can bloody see what you're doing. You're not fooling anybody, except, of course, for the brainwashed elbows up crowd. So what's the committee saying? What's the notice of motion that the committee report the following recommendations to the House the first opportunity? Oh, yes. Notice of motions in committee. If you've never been in a committee of any kind, I would suggest look it up. And what do we have here? Is this where they actually started?
This takes patience, perseverance, and innovation.
This sounds like
But
statements
with the
by the
spirit
members.
that has animated GGH for the last 150 years, we know it's
Yeah, there's not enough excitement going on. They're slowly still filing a statement by the members. So if you've ever been in a committee, and then of course all the committees usually use a Hoyle's Book of Rules on how to run their committees, and there's usually a bunch of basic things. Now, of course, for the very specifics, go to the Green Book for the Parliament, and the orders there will detail specifically how notice of motions are actually engaged. And typically, a notice of motion is required because you're going to make a motion at the committee, so you have to give a notice ahead of time, and there's usually a certain amount of time ahead of time required in order to give this notice of motion. That the committee report the following recommendations to the House in first opportunity: that the Conflict of Interest Act, including the Conflict of Interest rules, disclosure mechanisms, and compliance measures set out on it, be reviewed. That the Standing Committee on Access to Information, Privacy, and Ethics be designated to undertake the review. That it be instructed to the committee to consider, as part of its review, whether the act should be amended or expanded with a view to enhancing transparency, preventing conflicts of interest, avoiding potential apparent conflicts of interest, regulating public office holders' ownership of assets and tax havens. That's a big one there. Remember, Carney moved his company, his field company down to the States just before the law kicked in, which would have given Canada's coffers a little bit of extra money. Instead, it went to his pockets and of his investors, limiting the availability of blind trusts as a compliance measure, right? So it's not a blind trust if you know what's in it. It's that bloody simple. Extending the Act's provisions to political party leaders and leadership candidates, right? If you're going to run for office to serve the public interest, you're there to serve the public, not yourself. And increasing penalties for noncompliance. Yeah, that's a big thing. There's a lot of fines right now that don't mean much at all. And fines need to be devastating in order for them to have an effect. In the time between when these recommendations are reported to the House and the House dispenses with them, begin hearing witness testimonies in a subject matter referenced in recommendation, blah, 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 blah. So it's not going to be overnight. It's going to take a while and guaranteed. Oh man, if you've ever seen the committees, it's quite the show, especially the way the Liberals lose their minds. This past week has been a complete embarrassment for the Liberals. It's like they've never watched a committee before. They have no idea what they're doing. Calling points of order. Somebody called what a uh, point of question? What? And that particular Liberal was at committees last year. It's like they eat stupid flakes for breakfast. And are we still doing statements by the members? Looks like he is, because he's just reading a statement and not pointing to the other side of the aisle. Let's move on to our next story here. We have some stats from the leader of the opposition, Pierre Poilievre. The U.S. gave Mexico a 90-day trade deadline extension in July after increasing their year-over-year trade with them by 8.2%. Now, how did that happen? How did Mexico get a deal and Canada not get a deal? Well, I can tell you why. Because liberals are virulent anti-American dickheads. That's right. They convinced a whole bunch of people in Canada to act like dickheads themselves too, to go ahead and hate somebody, right? To follow a cult of personality of the banker, right? The last time we saw a cult of personality to this effect was maybe in 1930s Germany, where everybody, regardless of what was going on around them, oh, they had to follow the leader. He's the only one who can save us. And we saw that. We would say, but he's done this, he's done that. He has no, oh, the elbows up, let's go. And so instead of going the old Zig Heil, they were showing us their elbows. Pretty well the same bunch of people, right? So here we are, 90-day. Mexico worked with them. I'm sure Mexico has, they recognize the States is their largest trading partner. In fact, they have a lot of Mexicans working there. So they know they need to be nice. So they worked with them. If Canada had just worked with the Americans, if they just worked with them, they're not even going down there making phone calls. They're doing everything they can to piss them off. So as long as the Liberals are running this shit show we call Canada, we're not going to get a trade deal. And the proof is in the pudding. Investments are fleeing. Investments are not showing up. Oh, they're going to point out, oh, look, we just had investment this week. Yeah, whatever. Pittance. When you look at the overall destruction that's happened in Canada, it's just crazy. So what do you have here? What did Prime Minister Carney get? A 10.4% drop in trade. Yeah, so there we are. The proof is in the pudding. We just have to look at the results. We just have to look around us in Canada to see that everything's gone crap and people are leaving. Everything's so expensive. And why is that? Because the people running the shit show that they have created to enrich themselves. Now, here's a post on X by the account Prime Minister of Canada. It's got the gray check marks. This is an official place, right? Today, Prime Minister Carney announced appointments to the National Security and Intelligence Committee of Parliamentarians, also known as NSICOP. This was the creation by Trudeau in order to add an extra level of bureaucratic incompetence regarding national security. This is the NSICOP ones that the leader of the opposition refused to sign when they came out, because they have legislation in there that states specifically anything you hear in that committee, you say a bloody word about it to anybody at any time, or we find out it comes back to you whatsoever, you can't talk about anything in there. So you're in there and you can find out a whole bunch of stuff about how the current government has been destroying this nation through their inaction or what they have been doing. And with this security thing, you're going to bloody see what's happening. Hell, we can see it around us. If these people are blind in the committee, they can bloody see what's happening. And that's why he's not signing it, because once this government falls, he can openly start saying everything that he wants. But those few MPs that they have in there, they won't be able to say a word. Those few MPs, let's see how they stack their committee. There's the committee right here. So we have a Liberal chair, another Liberal, another Liberal, another Liberal, another Liberal. Oh, then we have 2 Conservatives, and then we have a Bloc Québécois, and 3 Senators. So I have no idea what the political affiliation is of these 3 Senators. I didn't even have time to look it up for the broadcast. But it's obviously they've stacked their committee. And I guess it's okay. The Conservatives do have a couple of voices in here, but really, what can they really say to their leader? They can't even really report to him because they can't discuss anything in here. Remember, so this is what you call a star chamber, almost. Because the decisions and stuff they're doing in here, they will just come out and say, oh, we're taking care of you, Canada. And then when you ask to find out what the hell's going on, oh, no, you're not entitled to. No, we will work in secret. Are we still having statements?
Ends meet. And the high cost of living isn't just about dollars and cents. It's about people's lives. It fuels anxiety, despair, and a growing mental health crisis. These heartbreaking choices are not normal.
It still sounds like statements. Right. So, next story. Oh, I thought I'd throw in a little Count Dankula. Remember the old, when his pug did the old funny mustache man salute? And then he got thrown in jail for it? I mean, this was the start of the complete stupidity in the UK. Yeah, it's bad enough being thrown in jail in the United Kingdom for saying hurty words online, but to be thrown in line because you filmed your dog holding up his paw, lucky crazy. But anyways, Count Dracula, that made him famous. So now here he is on GBN discussing something that is completely unrelated to Canadian politics.
Count Dankula. Right, I want to start with Brigitte Macron, actually. The Macrons offer photographic evidence to prove Brigitte is a woman. Is not a woman, is what it said on there. But Count Dankula, what do you make of this?
I don't know, I never thought there would ever be a time where there was a nude picture I didn't want to see. I feel bad for everybody in that courtroom. Because you know the thing's going to look like a leper that smoked a firework. But,
you can't say that about Brigitte. That's not fair. She's not here to defend herself. If she's, you know, she's an older lady. She's 72, isn't she? So come on.
Yeah, she's every right to defend herself in court. I just think it's horrible putting the poor people that work at the court through that. But
no. Yeah, but do you think Candice has just lost the plot a bit on this one?
No, like the whole accusations of a transgender wife is like, that's been around for a while. A lot of people say the same things about Michelle Obama, or Big Mike, as we like to call her. But it's, again, if there's our shoulders are broader than mine, she could beat me in a fight. But basically, this is...
She's probably taller than you as well.
Probably is, by the way, yeah. But in regards to this, right, it's something that has gone around for like a little while, because Brigitte Macron looks off. I don't know what it is. Like, they look strange. Like, have you ever seen that scene in Mars Attacks where the alien wears the wig? Like, I think that's what she looks like. But
that's not fair. Brigitte Macron's not here to defend herself. I think that's a little bit unfair.
Okay, we gotta have a laugh once in a while, especially with all the misery that the Liberals are heaping upon Canada. So let's go back here. And, oh, here's a Liberal.
Parce que le Gainsbourg, qui a affronté son ami d'enfance, Bénédicte Mathurin, a ramené la coupe à Bourassa et on l'a vraiment eu chez nous à Bourassa. Il a ramené également l'espoir, il a ramené la fierté pour les jeunes de Bourassa. Il a ramené également le message clair de la nécessité d'avoir des infrastructures parce que ça n'a pas d'allure que de jeunes de Bourassa, plus que 40 000 jeunes, aient à s'entraîner la nuit d'aller dans un autre comté pour avoir une infrastructure, un centre sportif. Il a ramené l'espoir, il a ramené la fierté, mais il a ramené un message clair que plus que jamais, Bourassa a elle aussi droit à avoir un centre sportif. Merci, Monsieur le Président.
The member for St. Albert, Sturgeon River.
Mr. Speaker, after 6 months, this Prime Minister's record can be summed up as promises made, promises broken. The Prime Minister promised the fastest growing economy in the G7. Instead, he's delivered the fastest shrinking economy in the G7. The Prime Minister promised jobs and investment. He's killed 86,000 jobs and presided over a massive outflow of investment. The Prime
Well, we must be getting close. Must be getting close to question period. So we do have one more story to touch on, I believe, here. There it is. Story from Blacklocks regarding my most favorite minister of all. Remember, this is the woman that destroyed the careers of 10% of the Canadian Armed Forces members who refused to get injected with an experimental messenger RNA treatment rebranded as a vaccine. Without informed consent, by the way, because we still did not know what the adverse events were when they were still coercing members to take it to keep their jobs. In accordance with Chief Defense Staff Directive 002 at the time, you had no choice. And they used the administrative process in order to release these members. They never charged every single one of them, even though there is a charge on the books that state you can specifically be charged for refusing a vaccine. But they refused to use those charges because they knew that if it went to courts martial, that they would be exposed for violating their rights and ethics. So the remaining 90% that stayed, they took it. And then out of those who took it, those who got injured, well, they were abandoned. They were released and abandoned and shuffled off to the vaccine injury support program that just refuses everybody treatment. And we know that that entire thing has been a failure for the past 2 years because public health had to take over. Once again, a liberal contract given to friends who take that money, spend it on themselves instead of taking care of the people. Because that's how liberals operate. This Minister of National Defense at the time, she was responsible for destroying your Canadian Armed Forces. They have not recovered from that 10%. And like I mentioned before, there's only 2 groups of people in the Canadian Armed Forces. Those who are waiting to get the hell out, and those who join because they believe in the cultural Marxist ideology. So have we started today, or is she still doing statements?
Justice and Attorney General.
Mr. Speaker, with respect to my honourable colleague, I'm sure she knows that we are moving forward with bail reform legislation that will be tabled in the House this fall. I had the opportunity yesterday to connect with a number of my critics, including the Conservative critic, to discuss items of mutual concern. Our belief on this side of the House is that we need to strengthen our bail laws and our sentencing laws to ensure that dangerous people who commit serious crimes and pose a public safety threat are not let to roam free on our streets.
For Thornhill.
Mr. Speaker, he voted for all of the things to break our system. The now public safety minister actually said during the election that bail wasn't a problem, and the justice minister, who just answered that question, ridiculed Canadians with his Twitter hot takes. After years of headlines about violent offenders released again and again in our streets, the Liberals are obstructing a real solution right now to fixing bail. On Monday, they have a chance to vote for the 3 strikes you're outlaw, to end repeat violent offenders being turned out onto the streets. Do they really think Canadians should wait for the next murder, the next assault, or the next victim? Act now.
Minister of Justice and Attorney General of Canada.
Mr. Speaker, we agree that we need to take action to ensure that violent repeat offenders are not left on our streets. However, it's curious the strategy that the Conservatives have chosen. The law that they are putting forward now has been shown to be a failure in every jurisdiction in which it is tried. It is a theory that has come directly out of the United States. I don't know if the opposition was paying attention during the recent election campaign, but Canadians very much want laws to be developed in Canada. Mr. Speaker, this is Canada, not the United States, and my citizens who I represent from...
So these guys, they're incredible, right? Oh, that's proven not to work. Meanwhile, Canada is busting at the seams with crime.
Jail, not bail laws. In Nova Scotia, a man sexually assaulted more than 300 children and within hours was released on bail. This is outrageous. The same violent criminals are cycling through the system again and again. That's why our Conservative motion brings 3 strikes and you're outlaw, no bail after 3 serious convictions. On Monday, will the Liberals stop obstructing Parliament and pass it?
The Honourable Minister of Justice.
The Liberals are a culture of death. They're not going to pass it.
My honourable colleague raises are clearly engage heinous crimes that need to be taken absolutely seriously. I spent a number of the last few months meeting with law enforcement, meeting with people who work within the criminal justice system, meeting with people who have dedicated their lives and careers to improving public safety in this country. Not one of them has come forward with a recommendation that we should adopt the Conservatives' approach to this particular issue. Mr. Speaker, we will use evidence. We will work with the stakeholders.
These are outright lies, what he just said, because police chiefs and associations have come out saying the exact opposite.
Really wanted to crack down on crime, they wouldn't cling to their catch and release laws that let repeat violent offenders back on our streets. For years, premiers, police chiefs, and mayors across the country have been pleading with this government while they defend laws that let criminals back on our streets. Enough is enough. Our motion is clear. After 3 violent convictions, no bail, no parole, no house arrest. Will the Liberals stop obstructing Parliament and pass jail, not bail, this Monday, yes or no?
Honourable Government House Leader.
Speaking of legislation, there is legislation before this House as we speak. Bill C-2, which secures our borders, which deals with the scourge of fentanyl, which brings order to our immigration system. That member has had many opportunities to get tough on crime by voting for Bill C-2. Where's he been, Mr. Speaker?
He read your bill, and he sees you're full of shite.
En matière de criminalité avec des peines bonbons et une approche de type attraper et relâcher, qui permettent aux récidivistes dangereux de retourner dans nos rues, souvent quelques heures à peine après leur arrestation. Le résultat, les infractions violentes ont augmenté de 55 % alors que les récidivistes dangereux circulent en toute liberté dans nos rues au lieu de purger leur peine derrière les barreaux. Pourquoi ce premier ministre libéral continue de protéger les victimes violentes au lieu de protéger les Canadiens?
Monsieur le Président, en plus des initiatives que mon collègue, le ministre de la Justice, vient d'annoncer, nous avons devant un projet de loi très important qui est le projet de loi C-2 qui va fournir les outils aux forces de l'ordre pour lutter contre le crime. On parle de fentanyl, on parle d'importation d'armes à feu, on parle de gangs transnationaux. Monsieur le Président, ceci aura des répercussions directes sur nos communautés, sur la sécurité dans nos rues. Nous serons toujours là pour veiller à la sécurité des Canadiens et Canadiennes. Bravo!
Typical Liberal. We're going to be there for you. Don't worry.
Les libéraux avaient promis de protéger les Canadiens, mais à la place, ils affaiblissent nos lois, ouvrent la porte aux récidivistes et bloquent les solutions concrètes proposées par l'opposition. Notre motion aujourd'hui est très claire. 3 infractions graves et c'est fini. Pas de mise en liberté, pas de détention à domicile, pas de probation, mais 10 ans derrière les barreaux pour protéger les familles canadiennes. Quand ce gouvernement va-t-il enfin protéger et prioriser les Canadiens et appuyer cette loi conservatrice?
La réponse, c'est jamais. Jamais.
Les électeurs du bas du fleuve, j'ose même croire, les électeurs conservateurs du bas du fleuve veulent savoir, est-ce que ce Parlement peut fonctionner peut fonctionner pour sévir justement contre les crimes, pour mettre en place des réformes, pour empêcher l'importation d'armes à feu, pour traiter du problème, du fléau des drogues dans nos rues. Mais ce député-là, il a la chance de voter pour un projet de loi. Il a eu la chance à maintes reprises de voter pour un projet de loi C2 qui va assainir notre système légal, qui va assainir notre système de...
Le député de Gaspésie, l'issue de la Madeleine, Listigouche.
Monsieur le Président, les préjugés des libéraux contre les lois québécoises sautent aux yeux dans leur recours contre la clause dérogatoire. Ottawa nage en plein délire. Dans son mémoire, le fédéral justifie son attaque contre la clause en évoquant la possibilité que le Québec s'en serve, et je cite, pour autoriser l'exécution arbitraire ou l'esclavage. D'abord, rassurons le gouvernement, il n'existe pas d'appétit au Québec ni pour l'esclavage ni pour les pelotons d'exécution. Maintenant, quand le fédéral va-t-il retirer son mémoire méprisant et son recours abusif contre la clause dérogatoire?
Bravo! Le ministre de la Justice.
So that memo we showed you earlier, they're pretty upset with that. They're trying to get rid of the non-withstanding clause.
Dans l'intérêt national, il est essentiel pour le gouvernement fédéral de défendre notre charte. Quand le député, on savait très bien, se casse et...
Leave it up to a liberal to defend the charter by destroying the charter. This is liberal mentality. They're insane.
Monsieur le Président, la clause dérogatoire au Québec a servi à protéger des fondements de l'identité québécoise comme la langue française et la laïcité, mais elle a aussi servi à des fins beaucoup plus pratico-pratiques, comme la cour des petites créances et l'équité en matière d'emploi. Faire des parallèles avec la possibilité que le Québec utilise la clause pour autoriser l'esclavage, les exécutions, la censure, l'interdiction des lieux de culte révèle le mépris total du fédéral dans le dossier. Quand Ottawa va-t-il cesser d'instrumentaliser les tribunaux pour mener sa croisade contre les lois du Québec?
Bravo! L'honorable secrétaire parlementaire.
Monsieur le Président, je me lève aujourd'hui pour dire que je suis une députée du Québec. Donc, Monsieur le Président, le député en face le sait très bien que le gouvernement est le parti de la Charte canadienne des droits et libertés. Je le répète, le gouvernement protège et protégera toujours la Charte des droits et libertés.
What a lying WHO are you? Their government is the government of protecting the Charter of Rights. The people that trampled all over it during the illegal peaceful protests, the ones who illegally invoked the Emergencies Act, they're the ones who want to protect the Charter. These are lying clowns.
Monsieur le Président, la clause dérogatoire était la condition sans laquelle les provinces n'auraient jamais signé la Constitution de 1982. Pour le Québec, qui ne l'a jamais signée, la clause demeurait une trop faible assurance contre la volonté fédérale d'assujettir les Québécois au pouvoir central canadien. Aujourd'hui, même cette faible assurance, c'est trop pour Ottawa. Les libéraux veulent affaiblir la clause dérogatoire jusqu'à la rendre inutilisable. C'est pas un combat juridique qui se déroule en Cour suprême, c'est un combat politique contre le Québec. Est-ce qu'Ottawa va...
Makes a good point. What I was saying earlier, they're just trying to destroy the legislation.
Très bien que l'intervention du gouvernement fédéral devant la Cour suprême n'empêchera aucune province, aucun territoire de continuer d'utiliser la clause dérogatoire. C'est très clair, il le sait et il me fera plaisir, s'il y a des enjeux, de m'asseoir avec lui et d'organiser une présentation avec le ministère de la Justice et moi-même, mais notre intervention sert à protéger les droits des Canadiens et des Canadiennes.
No, you cannot talk about protecting the rights of Canadians after you made a bunch of us second-class citizens for refusing your experimental injection, and those who took the injection, who got hurt, or passed away, they have been taken care of. You know nothing about human rights.
To get serious about its border, it deployed 10,000 new personnel in a matter of days. At the same time, the Prime Minister promised Canadians that he would hire 1,000 new border officers. So a very simple question to the Minister of Public Safety. How many officers have been hired and are deployed today?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Public Safety.
Monsieur le Président, nous sommes en voie d'engager 1000 nouveaux agents pour les douanes et 1000 emplois supplémentaires pour la GRC. Nous voyons déjà une baisse drastique au niveau des importations illégales d'armes à feu et de fentanyl. Nous sommes en train de réaliser nos promesses Et bientôt, nous aurons tout le personnel pour compléter ce travail-là.
He's got the worst haircut, and he didn't answer the question.
In all of that, I didn't hear a number, but let me give him the number because the information disclosed to this House by the Canada Border Services Agency says that the Liberals have hired 0 new officers. Oh. And it gets worse. It's worse. Not only have they not hired any officers, they don't even have a plan to hire any officers. So my question again is, when will they hire the border officers?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Public Safety.
Monsieur le Président, non seulement nous sommes en train d'engager plus d'employés, nous sommes aussi en train, nous avons davantage d'hélicoptères, de drones, de scans. Nous réalisons et nous faisons plus de...
Yeah, don't answer the question, buddy. We're all watching you. Don't answer the question.
De plus en plus de drogue au niveau. Donc ça fonctionne, Monsieur le Président. Et dans 2 semaines...
Non, ça fonctionne pas, Carlis.
De nouveaux finissants qui rejoindront les rangs de l'agence frontalière.
I love how they gesticulate even more when they have no answer.
Speaker, people in Windsor and across this nation are tired of feeling unsafe and under siege in their own communities. For 10 years, Liberals have pushed catch and release. Violent repeat offenders arrested, then back on the streets, sometimes within hours. My former colleagues in policing are tired of arresting the same criminals over and over again. Conservatives have a clear solution. 3 strikes and you're out. Mr. Speaker, people out there are demanding jail, not bail.
The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Mr. Speaker, I thank my colleague for his question. I have immense respect for his service and those of his colleagues. However, I disagree with a number of points that he's made. He's referred to policies of the Liberal government, but he may not appreciate that the very policies he criticizes made it harder for people charged with intimate partner violence to get bail, made it harder for people to avoid
That's a lie.
when it came to serious crimes such as attempted murder or torture. Mr.
That's
Speaker.
an obvious lie because they're all being
Canada
released.
Solutions informed by experts who understand the
You had a
context of
woman
this country to
who
determine
had to
what will
leave
keep
the
our country
country because you wouldn't protect her from intimate partner violence. Held a press conference over it.
Release laws that turn criminals loose on our streets, Liberals are obstructing the passage of common sense jail, not bail proposals. Violent crime is up 55%. In Niagara, residents were horrified when they heard the news of Daniel Senegal breaking into a Welland home and sexually assaulting a 3-year-old girl while her family slept. On Monday, will the Liberals accept our common sense proposal on criminal justice reform and pass our conservative 3 strikes and you're out bill?
The Parliamentary Secretary to the Secretary of State for Combating Crime.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And I can tell you, everyone in this House has a great deal of empathy. And nobody wants to see animals like that on our streets. That's why this government, our new government, has 3 initiatives in front of us. The first is the Strong Borders Act. The second is bail reform. The third is safe zone, hate zone legislation. These 3 initiatives have one objective.
Oh, hate zone, eh?
Them away. The question is, will the Conservatives back us in being tough on crime?
Dystopian hate zones is what they're providing.
Welland, St. Catharines, and Niagara Falls have all indicated that our justice system fails Canadians when repeat violent offenders are allowed back onto our streets. That's why common sense Conservatives have proposed a jail, not bail law, a 3 strikes and you're out bill, and more. Today, I will introduce a bill which proposes to keep monsters like Paul Bernardo locked up in maximum security where they belong. Will the Liberals support our common sense justice reforms to restore Canadians' confidence?
I can't believe he said hate zones. They want to bring in hate zones. So any cop can come arbitrarily and say, what you're saying is hate, I'm going to arrest you.
Member whether he was going to support our tough on crime legislation. So that's part one. I guess the canned answer you had prepared beforehand didn't prepare you for that. So that's okay. But here's the good news. Here's the good news. We have the Strong Borders Act. We have the Strong Borders Act that's going to hire 1,000 new CBSA officers, 1,000 new RCMP officers to go after the bad guys and put them away.
So you had 6 months. You've done Sweet FA. You plan to do this stuff. You haven't done Sweet FA.
Government, the dream of home ownership has been pushed out of reach. With home ownership
now costing 55% of Canadians' pre-tax income.
Wow.
Meanwhile, these Liberals are at secret cash-for-access fundraisers with developers, bankers, and lobbyists. But their conversations have not been reported to the lobbying commissioner. So before these insider deals drive prices even higher, will they tell us which members and which ministers attended?
Oh boy. Slimy buggers.
The government House Leader.
As you know, Mr. Speaker, Canada has some of the toughest ethics and fundraising guidelines in
He's
the
not going to answer the
entire
question.
world. The Liberal Party of Canada has in the past surpassed those guidelines, and the Liberal Party
Never.
of Canada will always
Never have they
apply
ever
the
surpassed
rules
those
and
guidelines.
Make sure that we follow the rules. We hope that the Conservatives can say the same.
That's right.
Member for Leeds, Grenville,
Conservatives don't need to say the same because you've been in power for 10 years violating those
Reported in the
ethics.
Globe and Mail. Let's see what the commissioner has to say. Quote, the commissioner has complained in the past that some lobbyists and their clients use caucus and cabinet retreats as an opportunity to mingle with politicians without declaring the conversations to her office. Now, this is happening at the same time that this Liberal Prime Minister has made sure that their fundraising events are now, as a rule, closed to the media, closed to any scrutiny from the public. We're talking about the Prime Minister. We're talking about ministers. We want to know who is in the meeting so we can find out who's going to get rich.
Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, for years, the former member for Carleton skulked around the country without telling anyone where their fundraising
Straw
events
man
were.
arguments,
While we
don't
were
answer the
publishing them
questions,
on our
just
website,
accuse the
the
other
Liberal
person
Party
who's
has
trying to
in the
get the
past
truth out of you.
Exceeded the rules
Deflect.
and exceeded the guidelines for these activities.
Lie.
The Conservative Party
Lie
has not
about what
always
you've
risen
done.
to that high standard. We
You
hope
don't
they
have any
do.
standards. If it was for lack of standards, you wouldn't have any standards at all.
Monsieur le Président, il n'y a rien de trop beau pour la monarchie. La gouverneure générale, encore elle a facturé aux contribuables 1 117 $ de souliers l'année passée. 1 117 $ de souliers, puis presque 7 500 $ de vêtements. Pendant ce temps-là, les Québécois nous parlent du prix de l'épicerie. Essayez de leur expliquer ça, eux autres, qui doivent payer les escarpins de monarques qui gagnent 400 000 $ par année alors qu'ils vivent avec l'inflation qui est galopante. Monsieur le Président, la gouverneure générale, là, comme tous ses prédécesseurs, elle a un problème d'achat compulsif. Quand est-ce que le gouvernement va y enlever sa carte de crédit?
It's because liberals love to please taxpayers.
Le gouverneur général accomplit un travail important représentant le Canada sur son territoire et à l'étranger. Le budget annuel du gouverneur général a été approuvé par le Parlement et les dépenses liées à cette fonction sont rendues publiques.
Oh, I see. So that's going to be your answer. Well, her budget was approved. It's all in the books. Everything she does is legal. Right? It's okay. It's all legal. It's fine. Nothing to see here.
Pourtant, Monsieur le Président, les autres ministres, ils ne dépensent pas des milliers de dollars. Hein? Ils dépensent des fois un 100 piastres pour une paire de bottes, mais on ne voit pas des milliers de dollars. Et pourtant, elle a un salaire de 400 000 $ par année. Là. À ce prix-là, elle est capable de s'acheter des souliers. Hein? Ça nous rappelle qu'en 2023-2024, seulement le poste de la gouverneure générale, puis toute sa suite royale, ça a coûté aux contribuables, tenez-vous bien, 59 millions de dollars. 59 millions de dollars gaspillés en un an pour faire vivre dans le luxe un symbole qu'on pourrait remplacer par un étampe. 59 millions pour un symbole de domination de souverains étrangers. Quand est-ce qu'on va arrêter ça?
La secrétaire parlementaire pour l'identité et la culture canadienne.
Monsieur le Président, le budget annuel du gouverneur général a été approuvé par le Parlement et les dépenses liées à cette fonction sont rendues publiques. Nous savons que les Canadiens et Canadiennes s'attendent à ce que toute dépense publique soit utilisée de manière responsable et c'est une question que notre gouvernement prend très au sérieux. Merci.
The member for Regina, Wascana.
Mr. Speaker, in the not-too-distant past, the Liberal Party used to be the party of fiscal responsibility. I remember when former Finance Minister Paul Martin promised to balance the budget come hell or high water. But now Liberal deficits are causing inflation and Canadians are paying the price. So my question to this Finance Minister, how much is this year's budget deficit and will the Liberals ever balance the budget again?
Here, here.
No, they won't.
Mr. Speaker,
Never.
I know Paul Martin. I worked with Paul Martin. That MP is not Paul Martin. I can assure him that that party is
Yeah,
not
you're
the
not Paul
party of
Martin
fiscal
either there,
responsibility.
Stephen.
It is the party that had an outrageously expensive spending proposal in their platform. That was rejected in the last election.
Paul Martin had a
We're
street
building
named
the
after him in
strongest
Pembroke,
economy
Ontario.
in the
You're not
G7.
getting anything
We
named
are
after
going
you
to
except maybe
get the budget into
your
operating
jail
balance.
receipt,
We are
hopefully.
going to work to create opportunities in this country. Paul Martin would be proud of that, Mr. Speaker.
Right, just a typical liberal response. You're not Paul Martin. We're going to work. Blah, 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 blah. No answer.
Mr. Speaker, I appreciate the comparison, but I didn't hear an answer in all of that, and so I'll ask again. In last year's fall economic statement, the budget deficit was $62 billion. A deficit of $62 billion was so embarrassing that the finance minister had to resign that morning rather than deliver the bad news. And so I'll ask again to this finance minister, how much is this year's budget deficit, and how high does it have to be before he resigns from embarrassment?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister and the Minister of Finance have made it abundantly clear that Canada's new government has a renewed focus on fiscal discipline and that Budget 2025 will have strong fiscal anchors. Budget 2025, in fact, will refocus government spending on operations while making transformational.
Oh, this new government has a refocused attitude. Well, the last 6 months of your so-called new government has not shown that.
That return comes in the form of good-paying jobs for generations to come.
You're a lying piece of vitreous.
That's what Canadians voted for.
The Honourable Member for Essex.
Again, to think, that's what Canadians voted for.
Part of it read, I went to Kingsville to buy some apples. Picked out 6 apples of average size, and the price was $8.50 for 6 apples. I left the apples and left the store without making a purchase. This Prime Minister is another bait-and-switch Liberal with more broken promises. After half a year to bring down food prices and the deficit, will the Prime Minister commit today to get inflation under control, or is his message to my constituents, how do you like them apples?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, this week I had the pleasure of meeting with the Canadian Teachers Federation. One of their top priorities, the National School Food Program. Healthy meals for over 400,000 kids, saving parents up to $800 a year in groceries. Every single province has signed on. Conservatives claim to care about food security, but at every opportunity they vote against teachers, families, and kids who know that healthy meals in schools is the right thing to do.
The Honourable Member for Windsor-Tecumseh Lakeshore.
Mr. Speaker, Windsor has an unemployment rate of 11.1%, the highest in Canada. The Prime Minister came home empty-handed after tariff negotiations, causing people to tighten their purse strings because of the economic uncertainty that the Liberal government has caused. Women's unemployment rate has increased 12%, and now more people can't afford rent, gas, and food. Everyone worries about being the next person to get that pink slip. Which of my colleagues from across the aisle will bring their silver spoons to Windsor to...
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, 2.6 million Canadian jobs rely on exports to the United States, and Canada has the strongest trade deal of any U.S. partner. Our government's working closely with both the U.S. and with Mexico to modernize our supply chains and support Canadian exporters. We're focused on maintaining the benefits of CUSMA, preventing future tariff threats, and expanding market access. Standing up for Canada is what Canadians expect us to do. Standing up for Canada is what our government is doing.
We don't want you to stand up or fight for us. We want you to deliver and serve us.
The Liberal Prime Minister promised to be elbows up. Instead, he's elbows down. The Liberal statistics show EI use among women aged 25 to 54 is up 12% in 1 month. I have women calling, asking where to find a job that will cover rent or groceries. Liberal economic mismanagement is putting women out of work. When will people in the BC interior see more job openings, not fewer?
It looks like the new jobs program for women is for them to sell their
That
bodies.
continues to support measures like childcare, a school food program, dental care, a tax cut for 22 million Canadians, eliminating the GST for first-time homebuyers, We've got a plan to make life more affordable and to create the jobs that are going to create a secure future for families across the country. But Conservatives at every opportunity vote against these measures.
I love how Liberals couch the government having to provide you food as a success.
Speaker, during the summer, I heard loud and clear from workers and investors across Canada that we have what the world needs, and they support the goal of becoming a clean and conventional energy superpower to build our future prosperity. Can the Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Energy and Natural Resources share how the government is advancing energy and natural resources?
Yes, please share
projects with
how you're
Indigenous
going to
rights
fleece
holders
Canadians out
across
of their
Canada
wealth for
and
your green
diversifying
scam.
our exports so that we win this trade war. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The trade war, you see, why do you, it's not, you fucking made it a war. It's not supposed to be a war, you idiots.
One review into action. BC and the federal government have jointly approved the new Silissum LNG export terminal led by the Nisga'a Nation and built with the First Nations owned pipeline. This project will be the second largest private investment in Canada's history and will export low-carbon LNG powered by renewable electricity. We've doubled the Indigenous Loan Guarantee Program, and we are working with our G7 partners to establish
This
the
whole
Critical Minerals Production
carbon-free
Alliance.
hydrogen
These measures
scam,
and more
right, is
are
one
what
of
will
those
enable
things
Canada
that Brookfield
to
is
become an energy
invested in.
superpower and win this trade
That
war.
it's more expensive to create
The honourable member for
for
Killatinam.
fraudulent science.
Housing starts, but they have actually declined 16%. So let's take a look at his top officials. We have the housing minister who brought a 150% increase to the price of homes when he was a mayor. And we have a new head of a $13 billion housing bureaucracy, Mr. Speaker, who was a Toronto City Councillor that saw a 700% increase to building taxes. Mr. Speaker, is it any wonder that housing starts are down and bureaucracy is up with these two leaders running the point?
Everything surrounding the Liberals is nothing but thrift and failure.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Canadians made it clear in the last election campaign that
there we go again.
build, and that means
They elected
building
us.
more
Shut up.
housing at
We
a
won the
pace that's
election.
not been seen in generations. That's why we have launched Build Canada Homes, which will be focused on building and financing affordable housing at a scale not seen in generations.
Right,
This
we've
includes
never
the
had to
first
pay
tranche of
$3.2
projects,
million
6 sites
per
on Canada federal
Jack on
lands
Iraq.
that will create 4,000 units, and we're also releasing $1 billion for supportive housing and $1.5 billion for the Canada Rental Protection Plan.
Oh, so they're spending even more money on top of the $3.2 million for ATCO trailer.
And address the housing crisis that they created. $13 billion to build 4,000 homes. That's $3.2 million per home, Mr. Speaker. It's clear that the more things change, the more they stay the same with these Liberals. More bureaucracy, higher deficits, and slower home building. And we also know that 100,000 construction workers could be out of a job because of this Liberal plan, Mr. Speaker. They're creating more jobs for bureaucrats in Ottawa and job losses for Canadians across the country. Why is the Prime Minister continuing down this failed approach?
Because the Prime Minister owns shares in the companies who produce the modular
Build
homes.
Canada Homes will bring together the right people with the right
The right
mandate
people
under
who
one
work for Mark
roof.
Carney's
Importantly,
investments.
a focus of Build Canada Homes will be to use modern construction methods with Canadian skilled trade workers and Canadian materials. The 6 sites that we've mentioned
Are you
is
insane?
just the
Who doesn't
first
use
tranche of
modern
projects that will
construction
build
methods?
4,000 new homes. We're looking to build hundreds of thousands of homes for Canadians. We look forward to the proposals and the applications from the members opposite for supportive housing in their communities.
The member for Abbotsford South.
So you didn't provide a budget to show that these hundreds of thousands of homes are going to come out of this money.
Instead, they're down by 16%. It's no surprise. Just look at who the Prime Minister put in charge. The Housing Minister oversaw a 150% surge in home prices and doubled rent prices when he was the Mayor of Vancouver. He even stated on record that home prices shouldn't go down. Now we learned that 100,000 construction jobs could be lost. For jobs for bureaucrats in Ottawa. Job losses for construction workers. With records like these,
The truth is, the jobs are already gone. The construction sites are shut down.
The Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Housing and Infrastructure.
People are stuck paying for condos that are never going to get finished in
Government has
Toronto.
a credible and ambitious plan to tackle the housing crisis and to build at a scale not seen since the Second World War. We are going to get affordable homes built with Build Canada Homes. Which
How
will be
did the
using
Liberals create a
Canadian
crisis
skilled
so
trades,
bad since the
Canadian
Second World
materials,
War
and
that they
modern
need to get
methods of
involved
construction?
to
This
pay
is building on the
$3.2
work we've
million
already done
per
to
modular
stimulate the
home
housing
to put on
economy
government
by getting the
property?
federal government back into the
Modular
business of
homes that
building
are known
affordable
to
homes,
go and
by
have
cutting the
mold issues
GST
after
for
20
first-time
years,
home
regardless
buyers,
of the new
and
technology.
by
They're
cutting
still modular
municipal
homes.
development
It's a
charges. We
trailer.
look forward to doing that work with all of you.
You look forward to further impoverishing Canadians. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Le gouvernement libéral frappe encore les familles canadiennes. Le 15 juillet dernier, sous les radars, les libéraux annoncent une augmentation des primes de la SCHL de 3 %. Plutôt que de réduire les primes comme nous l'avons proposé, ils les augmentent. Cela va se traduire par une augmentation des coûts de loyer de 500 $ annuels par famille canadienne. C'est inacceptable. Quand ce gouvernement va-t-il penser aux familles canadiennes au lieu de créer constamment de l'inflation? Bravo!
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to Minister of Housing and Infrastructure.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. CMHC is getting to work on building supportive housing, affordable housing. We have financing that is being released at a scale that's not been seen in generations. We know CMHC has a proven track
Released at a
record
scale
of
not
delivering.
seen in
We have seen
generations
that
since
over the last
World
10
War
years with affordable housing
II.
and supportive housing that is built in this country at a scale not seen.
Peter Bose.
Justement, en parlant de dépenses incontrôlées, M. le Président, il y a encore pire. Le gouvernement libéral annonce la construction de 4 000 nouveaux logements au coût de 13 milliards de dollars. Pincez-moi quelqu'un, là. Ça fait 3,2 millions par porte, M. le Président. Ça ne tient pas la route. Monsieur le Président, donnez les contrats au Beauceron. En Beauce, avec 3,2 millions, on construit 15 portes, pas une. En Beauce, avec 13 millions, on construit pas 4 000 logements, on en construit 60 000. Y a-t-il quelqu'un qui peut m'expliquer pourquoi qu'avec les libéraux, ça va coûter 15 fois plus cher? Bravo!
Non, non, tu vas avoir, tu vas pas avoir une réponse à ça.
Monsieur le Président, le Canada fait aux crises de logement. Lors de la dernière campagne électorale, les Canadiens ont clairement exprimé qu'il est le temps de construire. Et cela signifie construire des logements à un rythme jamais vu depuis générations. C'est pourquoi nous avons lancé Maison Canada, un programme
It's just
axé
wonderful,
sur la
eh, for them to
construction et
repeat the
financement de
same
logements
non-answer in
abordables
French
à
over and
grande
over again,
échelle
in English
pour
and French,
répondre aux
never answering the
besoins des
questions. This
Canadiens
is
sur
your
tout
liberal
le
government.
spectre de
Well, in fact,
logement.
this is most
Cela
governments in
inclut
Parliament
les
whenever they have a
6
majority, but
premières
not
cibles
usually when
qui
they
ont
are a
créé,
minority
qui va
party
créer
acting like a
4
majority
000 unités
government,
avec
and
un
that's the way they
potentiel
act.
total de
Le député.
They're not going to answer the question.
Dismayed, deceived, dollars, $1 billion. And now former Transport Minister was dismayed when I asked her about the Liberals funding BC Ferries to build 4 new ships at a Chinese state-owned shipyard back in June. Turns out her office knew about the deal weeks earlier, according to the Globe and Mail yesterday. Canadians deserve transparency on the reported national security concerns with this deal. The Liberals promised Buy Canadian. When will they stop investing in China's economy and cancel the $1 billion loan?
The Parliamentary Secretary to Minister of Housing and Infrastructure.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We share the disappointment that BC Ferries has gone forward with this procurement, and it's important to note that no Canadians bid on this work. We are now laser focused on buying Canadian. What we need to do as a government is ensure that work is being done by Canada, in Canada, by Canadian workers, using Canadian materials. It's time to build. It's time to buy Canadian.
Here, here. Member for Cultural Marxists.
No answer. They're laser
The Liberals
focused.
know full well that no Canadian shipyard could justify the multi-million-dollar cost to build on this major capital project, as contracts were designed with Chinese cheap labor, low worker safety standards, and minimal environmental regulations in mind. So now billions of dollars of printed money is going out of our economy and into China's. The solution, let's build new ferries here in Canada. When will this self-proclaimed great economist Prime Minister put Canadian workers and the Canadian economy first?
There you go.
And
Put your
cancel
finger on the grift.
the $1
Printed a
billion
bunch of
loan?
money, and they set up the contracts so only a particular bidder could win.
Mr. Speaker, first of all, this is a Crown Corporation in British Columbia. This federal government is investing massively in shipbuilding across the country. We're building ships in Quebec. We're building ships in Halifax. We're building ships in Vancouver. Irving Shipyards alone in Halifax employs 2,400 workers, with 10,000 additional jobs created across the country in its supply chain. Mr. Speaker, we are serious about rebuilding Canada's shipbuilding capacity. We're in the middle of it. We're building 6 Arctic and offshore patrol
Yeah, so
ships, 15
you're just going to
Canadian
avoid the
surface combatants,
fact
and
that
2 joint
you
support ships.
rig the
Mr.
contract to give
Speaker,
it to your Chinese buddies.
For Nanaimo Ladysmith.
Well, all the other shipyards are busy. That's not an excuse, buddy.
Canadians have died since the addictions crisis was declared a public health emergency in 2016. Over 16,000 of those deaths were in BC, Mr. Speaker, including heartbreaking losses in Nanaimo Ladysmith. Yet, this Liberal government has quietly extended overdose prevention site exemptions by a year while failing to expand treatment and recovery. Why are the Liberals doubling down on temporary measures while leaving us waiting for the treatment and recovery beds we desperately need?
Because the entire purpose of harm reduction was to reduce the population.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Our government understands the devastating impact the drug and overdose crisis
Well, you
has
should.
had
You
on
caused it.
families and communities every quarter of the country. We must use every tool at our disposal to fight this crisis. That means cracking down on drugs and prosecuting drug trafficking, and making sure communities, Indigenous people, and community healthcare organizations have
Yes,
the tools
all
they
these
need
things
to
that
connect
your
more people to
policies
treatment
prevent
and vital
society from
services
doing.
faster. We will work with all partners at all levels to put
No,
an
you
end
haven't.
to
You
this
had 10
tragic
years to
public
work with
health
them. You've only made things worse.
Member for
It's a nice
Nanaimo
answer,
Ladysmith.
but it means nothing.
Overdose prevention sites were meant to be temporary, Mr. Speaker, but this Liberal government just extended their legal exemption by a year without consulting local governments or residents. Nanaimo City Council debated spending $412,000 of taxpayers' money to fence off City Hall because of issues tied to our downtown overdose prevention site, and it still has a deferred motion on the books calling for its closure. Will the minister admit that bypassing communities was wrong and commit to real consultation, treatment, and recovery?
Of course not. They're not going to answer the question because the Liberals are involved in providing the drugs. Somebody's making money from putting up these drugs for harm reduction on the streets, and it's probably a Liberal.
This really impacting our community, and we share we share the compassion, and we empathize with the situation. As I mentioned before, we will continue to work with partners at all levels to make sure that we provide the support that's needed and to end this public health crisis.
You had 6 months since the last election, and you've done nothing.
L'agriculture est au premier plan pour beaucoup de gens au Canada. Nous assistons à une instabilité mondiale croissante, y compris des tarifs douaniers injustes de la Chine sur les produits agricoles canadiens comme le porc, le canola et l'aquaculture. Le premier ministre et ses collègues du cabinet ont rencontré le premier ministre Mo et d'autres acteurs clés de l'industrie de cette semaine à Ottawa. Donc, est-ce que la secrétaire parlementaire de la ministre de l'Agriculture et de l'Agroalimentaire du Canada peut-elle donner à cette Chambre une mise à jour sur les aides disponibles pour les agriculteurs canadiens qui font face à ces tarifs chinois?
Parlementaire au ministre de l'Agriculture.
Monsieur le Président, mon collègue a tout à fait raison. L'agriculture, le secteur agricole, c'est un pilier de notre économie. C'est un emploi sur 9. Pour soutenir nos producteurs qui font face à des tarifs complètement injustifiés de la Chine, on a doublé les paiements anticipés. On a ajouté 75 millions au programme agri-marketing et en plus, on a ouvert le secteur du biocarburant. On n'abandonnera jamais nos producteurs, ceux qui mettent de la nourriture
So there you
sur
go.
notre
Once
table.
again, the only Liberal response to anything is just to spend more of the money we don't have to fix the problems they've caused.
Injury support program revealed the Liberals gave away over $50 million to a high-priced consulting firm called Oxero. The consulting firm pocketed $36 million in administration fees, while over 1,700 Canadians are still waiting on their claims. After Conservatives demanded an investigation, the Liberals were forced to cancel the contract. The Liberal minister knows unqualified consultants took millions of tax dollars without delivering results. So when will Canadians get their money back?
Here, here.
Never. Because that money was never yours. It was the Liberals' money.
Support program was created to provide support to vulnerable Canadians. The alleged behavior is completely unacceptable. The Public Health Agency of Canada accelerating the audit of Zero and its management of the program, and will make the results of this audit public once available. We're bringing administration of the program internally, which will align with other G7 countries and Quebec. Will ensure that taxpayers' dollars are being spent appropriately and support Canadians who have been negatively impacted.
Negatively impacted. You ruin their lives with an experimental injection, ruin their health, kill them.
Legitimately injured by COVID vaccines. That money is all spent.
The only problem is 70% of it went to consultants rather than the people who were legitimately injured. What's worse, 1,700 people haven't even had their claims processed. They haven't even heard back. Why is it that every time the Liberals say they're going to spend taxpayer money to support Canadians, it's their consultant friends who end up getting rich?
This is tied directly to Anita Anand, right? All the Canadian Armed Forces members, they're stuck in that same failed program.
Canadians. And as I mentioned before, the alleged behavior is unacceptable. The Public Health Agency of Canada accelerating the audit of Xero and its management of the support program. And we'll make sure the results of this audit is made public once available. We're bringing administration of the program internally, which aligns with G7 countries, and we'll make sure that taxpayers' dollars are well spent. Thank you.
When are Canadians going to get help? You monsters. You bloody death cult monsters.
Les Canadiens se rendent compte que nos politiques et nos systèmes ne cherchent pas à prévenir la maladie, on attend toujours qu'elle arrive. La sédentarité et les maladies chroniques coûtent 3,9 milliards de dollars aux contribuables et ça représente près de 60% des décès au Canada. C'est une situation qui pourrait être évitée. En 2025, le Canada n'a toujours pas de stratégie nationale en matière d'activité physique. Combien de temps encore faut que le gouvernement libéral prenne avant d'agir sur ce sujet important?
Bravo, bonne question. Honorable secrétaire parlementaire au ministre de la Santé.
Colleague pour la question. Our government is committed to improving the overall health and well-being of people of Canada. Healthy habits such as balanced diet, regular physical activity, and active lifestyle are essential to supporting quality of life and long-term well-being of Canadians. We're collaborating with all partners, and I look forward to working with you directly on advancing any of the issues that you are experiencing in your community. Thank you.
The member for Oakville West.
The issues your party created.
Mr. Speaker, in an increasingly uncertain world, Canada must be prepared to protect our people, secure our sovereignty, and work with our allies. That's why our government making historic investments in our armed forces and committed to reach the NATO's 2% spending target by the end of the fiscal year. Can the Parliamentary Secretary to the Secretary of State for Defense Procurement share with this House how our investments
Yes,
will
share
strengthen
please the
Canada's
self-licking
defense
ice cream
industrial
cone
base
question
and
of a
create
liberal
good
to a
jobs for
liberal.
Canadian workers.
Parliamentary Secretary.
Give us some lies about the Canadian Armed Forces and how well you're taking care of them.
It's true. Not only are we making generational investments in the Canadian Armed Forces to
They're
reach
not
our
investments,
NATO
they are
target,
spending.
we're going to leverage and grow Canada's defense industry to create and support
You know, when I used to
good-paying
listen
jobs,
to
get the equipment that
Question
our
Period,
forces need,
if
and
I had to watch it
deliver
on rewind, I would put
allies.
her on double
We will be
speed
launching
because
Canada's
she
defense
talks so
industrial
slow
strategy
when
to
she goes
protect
on
Canadian
about this
sovereignty,
and that.
safeguard our security, and create long-term opportunities for our workers. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable member for Souris,
Like how you screwed all the Canadian Forces members out of their fuel pay. Very good.
Canadian canola farmers are being punished by crippling Chinese tariffs. Yet this Liberal government, they just shrug their shoulders. Instead of fighting for market access, they've responded in the most liberal way possible, creating more government programs. But farmers don't want handouts. They want a trade deal. When will this Prime Minister stop hiding behind bureaucratic band-aids and finally get to work making a real trade deal for Canadian canola farmers?
Exactly. The farmers even come out and said, don't give us money. It's
Mr. Speaker,
problem.
Prime Minister, our government is working really hard to resolve these unfair tariff from China on our
Oh
producer,
yeah, you've been
on
working
our
really
canola
hard for the
producer,
past
our
6
pork
months. You worked
producer,
so hard,
and
you decided to shut down Parliament and then go
Mr.
on
Speaker, we
vacation.
don't wait for that to be resolved. We are proposing to double the advance payment program for canola farmer. We
See?
also added $75 million.
We're just going to spend. That's our
agri-marketing
response to
program.
everything.
We
Eh?
have
Just
also
spend,
opened the
spend,
market
spend.
for biofuel. We will stand
The member for
We will
Vancouver,
spend.
Kingsway.
Alarming reports reveal Canada will miss our 2030 climate targets, yet this Liberal government is abandoning key climate policies they once called essential.
Oh, this is
Before
great.
entering
I
politics,
love seeing the
this
left
Prime
eat the left,
Minister
especially
said he
around
believed in
the
climate
fraudulent
action, but now in office,
climate
he's ripping
scam policies.
right
Remember,
out
all
of
the
Conservatives'
policies in
playbook.
Canadian government that are
Canadians
climate
know
responsible
economic development
were based on
must be
IPCC data. There
Will
was
the
an
Liberals
international
deliver
panel
nation-building
on climate
projects
change,
like the NDP's
right?
East
And their
West
data has been
electricity
proven to
grid
be fraudulent,
to provide low-cost,
especially the data
clean
points when
energy
they're
to
looking at heat
Canadians
sources.
and
They have them in built-up
Canada's
areas, so they're
sovereignty.
getting fraudulent data there. They refuse to look at historical data, and they refuse refuse to include
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and
space
thank you
weather.
to my colleague from
Because the
Vancouver
sun
for the
constantly
question.
increases
Our
and
government,
decreases in heat, and that affects the
Canada's emissions are now
planetary weather.
41%
But no,
lower
no,
today
they
than they
can't
have been in the
include space
past.
weather as part
Canada's
of their
climate plan is
IPCC data,
designated for our
and that is
economy
what they
and treating
use
realities, and it
as
applies to our
policy,
strengths in clean
as
energy,
data for their policies
critical
to put their
minerals, and
green scam
innovation.
on us.
I'm proud to stand on this side of the House as a father of 2 young children. We're working for today, we're working for tomorrow, we're working for future generations, we're working for 6, 7 generations ahead, and I'm proud to be on this side.
The member for Nunavut.
Hunters and trappers organizations protect Inuit lands and wildlife. The environmental assessment process is not balanced. Mining companies have millions to coax Nunavut to extract minerals. Hunters and trappers organizations barely have enough just to participate.
Shame.
Article 5.7.13 of the Nunavut Agreement is not being fulfilled.
Shame.
Will the Liberals finally uphold its legal obligations in the Nunavut Agreement?
No, they won't.
and fully
You gotta
fund the
remember,
Hunters and
the
Trappers
Liberals have failed for the past
organizations?
10 years, just like they did before, to provide clean drinking water up north. They don't care about you.
Koyanami to my colleague from Nunavut for her important question. This is certainly an issue that we will take note of, and I look forward to bringing back a forthright answer back to my Nunavut colleague.
I think we should send Brendan Hanley on a flight up to Iqaluit so he can shop at their local grocery store.
Daily routine of business, tabling of documents, introduction of government bills. Mr. Fraser, seconded by Mr. Ali, moves for leave.
Well, that concludes the end right now. I just did it again, didn't turn on the microphone. Thank you for waiting for me. Well, that concludes today's episode of The Nap, the no answer period. Thank you all for coming by. We'll be back again next week, hopefully with better mic control to cover the question period. Thank you all for coming. If you're watching us on YouTube, please give us a like. If you're watching us on Rumble, please give us a thumbs up and follow. Please subscribe on any of the channels whatsoever. And we will finish off by putting in our outro, if I can get it in. Let's see. And hello. Not that one. Almost there.